What do you mean?
Like when you're refereeing a game in MLS, are the fans the same in Saudi or the same in Africa or wherever you have ref?
Because the truth of the matter is, the away team, and the referee for the home team are always the opposite. So home fan, the referee, and the away team are on the same boat most of the time, right? Like the fans are feeling some type of way about you, right? I mean, there's no win-win, I would think, anywhere you go.
So here's the difference, right? In MLS, as soon as you arrive at the stadium during the walkthrough of the field, usually the diehard fans are already there, an hour and a half. You go to Austin, Kansas City, Philly, those guys are there. As soon as they open the gates, they're there. Like, what are you doing there? 90 minutes. But that's the love. That's the love of the game. So the moment we walk in, they know you by name. They're like, Ismail, what's up? That call last time sucked.
So I guess we'll get started.
All right, let's get started.
Thank you, Mr. Ismail, for joining us.
An honor.
Yeah, it's an honor. I mean, a lot of people consider you the Messi of referees in MLS.
I just need to get his paycheck now.
Hey, so, it's funny that you're saying that. Being that we're on that, talking about paychecks.
You're gonna go there already?
No, we're not going to go into that.
You brought it up.
But yeah, you did. I do want to talk about where we are currently with the strike.
So I would reframe that question of where we are currently with the renewal of the CBA.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the strike is a possibility amongst many possibilities. But right now, I mean, everything is still in negotiations. It's still open. We're here at Pro Camp getting ready to start the season, and we are operating as referees as if we are gonna be there on the field on game one and refereeing. So we've been here since Monday. We'll be here till Friday. We're hoping that the union and pro will sort it out, but that's kind of where things sit right now. Yes, there's some angst about possibilities of them not reaching an agreement, but for now we can hope.
I mean, Ismail, you have a great career in refereeing here in MLS, internationally, World Cup, and then even in Saudi League. Can you talk to us about the difference between like MLS, international, and maybe Saudi League?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the biggest difference, of course, number one is the style of play. The World Cup is the pinnacle of the game. The pace of the game is faster. The stakes are higher. Players are playing for the jersey. They're not playing for the contract or for some people might say that they would do it for free. If you go to countries like Brazil and Argentina and some of the Mexico, some of the traditional football heavy countries, a player will do anything to wear the national jersey. So the level of a World Cup game is unmatched in terms of speed, intensity, emotion, stakes, etc. So that I put that at the very top, of course. And then between MLS and Saudi, for us, the biggest difference for me is the familiarity with the players, the coaching staff, the venue, etc. You walk in and you know the security guard and you know the locker room attendant, and so there's a level of comfort that gets you into a nice routine, which for any athlete is good. We like routines, right? We tie our shoes the right one first or left one first. You put your socks, and whatever you do, you try to do it every time the same. When you go into a game in Saudi, everything is thrown out of whack because you don't know what's going to happen, especially Saudi, right?
Of course.
They could change your game the day before, which had happened to me. They could change the start time, So it's a little bit of I would say an exciting adventure when you go to other leagues. However, it's a privilege. I got to tell you guys. I mean, I look around the roster of referees with me. Not that many get to experience going somewhere else. So for me, it's a big privilege to be able to go and referee in another country. And I've been to many countries by now.
Ismail, how did that experience come about in refereeing in Saudi?
So pro referees, we've been actually going to other countries for many years. We used to go to China. China for a while had almost like every month a few of us would go. They reach out. There's contacts, like whoever the head of refereeing in that particular country usually would reach out to US Soccer. Recently we got approached by Japan, the JFA, the Japanese Super League. They reached out to US Soccer and said, hey, we're interested in an exchange. We're interested in a crew crew to come over. So they reach out either that way. Sometimes they reach out to us directly because we've shared tournaments with them at FIFA, right? Where they say, hey, are you interested in coming refereeing? So it's that's kind of how they come about. It's either directly through a personal relationship or through pro or through US soccer, sometimes even through CONCACAF. As you guys know, there was an exchange between CONCACAF and AFC, and there was also an exchange between CONCACAF and the CAF, the African League, which I was going to be there, but unfortunately with COVID, it didn't work out. So that's kind of how those things happen.
Were the reactions of the fans similar, different to what you're used to?
You mean to the game or to the referees, or what do you mean?
Like when you're refereeing a game in MLS, are the fans the same in Saudi or the same in Africa or wherever you have ref?
Because the truth of the matter is, the away team, and the referee for the home team are always the opposite. So home fan, the referee, and the away team are on the same boat most of the time, right? Like the fans are feeling some type of way about you, right? I mean, there's no win-win, I would think, anywhere you go.
So here's the difference, right? In MLS, as soon as you arrive at the stadium during the walkthrough of the field, usually the diehard fans are already there, an hour and a half. You go to Austin, Kansas City, Philly, those guys are there. As soon as they open the gates, they're there. Like, what are you doing there? Not even, but that's the love. That's the love of the game. So the moment we walk in, they know you by name. They're like, Ismail, what's up? That call last time sucked. Or this call was great. Whatever they want to say. So,
Yes.
So they're, like I said, there's that level of familiarity. When you go to do a game in Kuwait or Japan, nobody knows who you are. So it's only interaction with fans only starts after the whistle, and you're either getting booed or left alone. I have to tell you guys though, that after the World Cup, because of that funny red card we had with Abubakar, now people will bring that. So that was a lucky strike for me too. It was like, did you give that red card? Why did you give it? I'm like, is the law?
Good cop, bad cop. You always got to be both, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's funny. So I always wondered, is there a part of you, obviously you love the game. You ended up working in the game. You refereed probably one of the best World Cups that we've seen in a very long time. Is there a part of you while you're watching this, like, oh my God, this game is amazing? Or are you so caught in the moment that you're not realizing the game because you are somewhat a part of it per se? Like, is there a line that's drawn where you're not a fan, but there's a part in your heart because obviously you love this game, you're a ref, that you can't help but like, oh my God, they came back to this, to that, the shenanigans, you know?
It really depends on the game. There are games where they almost don't need you as a referee. They're just playing. So for example, my Croatia-Japan game, they just, both teams, from their style to their culture to their attitude, they just play. So they almost don't need a referee. Those I enjoy a lot because I get to just be part of the game without being part of the game. And I can see the pass coming and I can see the options. And those you really, really can live through them. And there are games where you need to referee. Sometimes I don't remember the score. Like I'm just working situation to situation. So the World Cup final was one of those games where at the end, I turned around to Katie and I said, Katie, what's the score? Because it was an unfourth official, by the way.
Yeah.
But just helping Simon with the situations in front of me in terms of the assignments that we have, watching which plays, etc., dealing with the benches, etc. I didn't realize that it was 3-3 and Mbappe scored 3 and it was like that all hits me after I watched the game on replay. Man, this was an amazing game. So yeah, that it depends on the game.
That's cool. That's cool.
That World Cup final, you were the fourth official. So how do the assignments get spread out or assigned to you guys? That you are a fourth official, the main official, or like linesman or VAR? Who picks that?
So FIFA match appointments happen 36 to 48 hours before the match. They usually happen in our main headquarters, wherever we're set up for that tournament. There's usually a big meeting room. The schedule comes out and you know that today appointments are at 5 p.m. You go into the room, the boss stands in front and he starts reading off date, stadium, teams, and then you wait for your name. And it's usually done by game and it's the whole team. Referee, so-and-so, assistant referee, so-and-so, and you just go through. And you can imagine the tension in that room when appointments are being announced. You're talking about people's life dream about to be, especially when you get that first one, right? You're talking about 15, 20, 25, sometimes 30 years you've been refereeing and your dream is to referee at the World Cup. And now you're in a room where your name might be called up. The room has about 150, 170 people. and you can hear a pin drop waiting for your name. And same goes for the second game, because nothing is guaranteed. You do the first game. Now, did I do well enough to get a second game? Same thing. And sometimes the appointments go out and your name is not called. Now you got to get back into training, get back into, okay, 2 or 3 more days before appointments come. So there's a level of, I would say, anxiety. It's good and bad. Depends how you're trained to deal with it. Some people look into it too much. Some people say, look, I'm going to train. The appointments will come whenever they come. So, but that's how it happens. You get in the room, your name gets called, and you're hoping that your name keeps getting called every time. And for us, once we've done the knockout stage game, the round of 16, we were not cut, because there's a couple of cycles of cuts where some referees are sent home. Like after the first round, some referees, so you're hoping your name does not get called for that. And then when you're retained, like, okay, I'm in consideration. So for us to be retained for the last 4 games was already a big win. Now we're like, gee, can we get the final? Yeah. And there was another day, we got in there, same way any game is appointed, but now it's the World Cup final, and you're hoping for your name, and it came through.
That's so awesome, man. That's as you're telling me that, I'm getting fired up as if I'm in the room with you. I'm like sitting there, like waiting, like listening to you say that you're going to tell us that they said your name, and then they did, and then you got the game, which is absolutely amazing, and it was probably one of the best ones ever. I mean, at least in my time, anyway. So that's awesome, man. And to hear that process is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's for sure was. It was.
I had somebody ask us via Instagram to ask the language. There were rumors that people, for the most part, everybody speaks somewhat English to have a conversation with you, because you're obviously dealing with people from different countries. They all probably have to ask you something, especially in the middle of an argument, or the captain. Is there somebody or a designated language that everybody speaks? Or is it kind of more of like a gesture thing and you kind of get it out to your point across with each other, just by mannerisms and stuff like that?
It's definitely a combination of both. There's so much you can tell by your body language, your facial expression, and those are usually more your whistle tone. Those are usually deliver the message better or sometimes stronger than if you try to verbalize them. Yes, generally English tends to be the default. However, there are people that could get disrespected if you speak to them in English, and they'll say, I don't speak English, speak to me in Spanish, for example. So you need to know the cultures and the egos and the players you're dealing with, right? If you're dealing with a Spanish player, but he played 10 years in the EPL, so you'd expect him to not overreact if you talk to him in English. But sometimes there are players that expect you to have done your homework, especially on key things. So, for example, on the penalty kick, shootouts, or penalty during the game, and you want to tell the keeper that he has to stay on the line or he's getting a yellow card. So it's a big deal for him to understand that, especially in the first years of VAR. So when we were in Poland in 2019, that was one of the first years FIFA is using VAR. And the keeper had to stay on the line or he was getting an automatic yellow card, right? Now, you could just say nothing and let him do it and give him a card. Or you can go and study a few words in Italian. I had Italy, for example, in the quarterfinal. And just learn yellow, line, and what did I say? Yellow, line, and be careful. I needed to learn 3 words in Italian so that I would have done that keeper justice, and it's on him if he decides to cross the line. So it depends, like any player, it depends how much homework you want to put into it. And for me, I always try to get a little extra and having a couple of words handy.
Oh, nice. I always wondered that also. And then when somebody asked us to ask you that, I said to myself, yeah, that's something that, I for some reason thought it was English was like the universal language. But I never thought of the disrespect part. Somebody being offended by you talking to them in English. Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes it's gamesmanship, right? They're not necessarily disrespected, but they'll make you feel, try to get an edge by making you feel uncomfortable. So now instead of giving them the warning, you're having to deal with the language. Oh, you have to do your homework.
You mentioned VAR briefly. Is VAR something that is too perfect? I keep hearing a lot during the EPL that they're going to go back and they're going to possibly change it, especially like the offsides. Because, when you go to the VAR, if your finger's over, but your body isn't over, it's an offsides, and that could obviously delay the game. I always thought that the part of human error in anything, from the athlete, the ref, adds something to the game. A little bit of a mystique of, a possible human error. Now that isn't there, there is something where, is it too perfect? Is it possible that something is too perfect?
Look, I'm a fan before anything else. So I like the purity of the game.
Oh.
Like,
That's what I wanted to hear.
Until you lose a game or my team loses a game because no one could see that the ball bounced bounced off the post and in by 2 feet, but no one could see it. Then I'm like, give
Lampard?
me something more perfect.
Lampard?
Yes.
That's what you're talking about?
Huh?
You're talking
Lampard,
about the
yes.
Lampard.
So yes. Now I'm like, man, I wish they would had something more perfect. So look, it's also mystique, VAR. It's just the line has been drawn a little bit further out where you can say, look, there are some things that I hope they never miss. And VR gives you that. And no one can walk out today and say, no, I'm willing to just play without it, right? But at the same time, you have to live with the other side of it where it gets too perfect because it's black and white, especially offside, because now you're saying in or out. However, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, right? There's discussions and talks about changing where the line is drawn between, like you said, is the attacker, nose ahead or is his whole body ahead? Now you're moving the line from the first to the end of the attacker. If there's overlap, you play on. So I think people might accept that a little better. They're trialing it, they're talking about it because they're aware of how unfair it feels for you to work for a whole season, right? And a whole game and then lose because your kneecap was ahead. But if your whole body was ahead, people can accept. So yes, FIFA is looking at that, and I'll be looking forward to, for example, that type of change.
Yeah, I like that. I like because a lot of people have complained about that, and it kind of takes the fun out of the players as well because they don't even know if they have to celebrate. So that's one of my questions to you is how flexible the VAR can be, and is it fun for the players to use VAR because now they can't celebrate because of a small margin of error or being offside.
Well, I think you guys watch the EPL a lot. That's why you have a lot of heart. So
I love that you know that, man. That's crazy, man. Like your knowledge of just by that question, you're kind of see where we're at with that. Like that's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
because I do. I mean, Howard Webb, who moved from here to the EPL after not starting, but he was the first one to be the VAR manager here at Pro MLS and stayed here. And he went to the EPL, but they're still having, let's just say, a bit more difficulty from the stakeholders accepting some decisions. While we here in MLS, the majority could argue that we're not at that level of dissent from the public. Why? It's the same head of VAR, Howard Webb. But why? That's when you get to the art of application of VAR, right? And how are the players educated? The media, you as a pundit, right? What are you expecting? So here in MLS, from the very beginning, we stuck with what we call the high bar of intervention, meaning, look, you're going to have to live with some plays that you could argue are wrong, but they're not clearly wrong, meaning you go to a room, you ask 100 people, and it's 50-50, those we're not going to touch. Even though those 50 are going to be quite unhappy. But if you get in the room and you give them the play, and 90 people tell you, look, this is PK or not PK, we're going to only intervene and use VAR for those. And we've said this since 2015 and then 16 when we started, and then it stayed that way. And we also didn't bring some of the perfect stuff like offside line. If you notice in MLS, we don't use it. It has to be clearly off without lines and technology. That also helped us a little bit. Even though sometimes some people have technology and they'll draw a line. It's like, this guy was off, but look, in general, we're not going to touch it. So those are a couple of things that helped us. But the EPL started at one place, then bounced back all the way to intervening for everything. Then they draw the line higher again. Then right now they're in that calibration phase. And once they calibrate everyone and implement it for a few seasons, then I think they will start to see some of the benefits we have in MLS. So for me, in MLS, we were a bit lucky to have stuck to that strategy. It's working out well for us. But every time I see new technology introduced, and I'm like, I get nervous, especially if they bring in the offside lines. So I feel your angst sometimes as well. I might have missed your original question, but I'm not sure if I answered it.
So we were talking before, and Christian brought up Matt Miazga at the end of the playoff game with the Red Bull. The rumor was that he was trying to get into like the referee's room or something of that nature. We don't know what his intentions were. But how do you guys separate something like that? Like, I know I've seen you guys at the same hotel with teams. When you're away every stadium, so you're close to one of the teams locker room wise. So if a player or somebody wanted to have an issue with you, which we saw in another league, if I'm not mistaken, like owners and somebody trying to get to a referee, how do you guys deal with that? Like, what's your do you guys have like the security there for you guys if there is an issue, or you kind of just there to defend yourselves? And you guys, I'm assuming you guys could issue red card then too, right? If there was an issue, yeah.
No, not then. Not when you get to the locker room. You cannot issue red cards, but there are other remedies. But let me answer. I'll answer this in general, just out of respect for Matt and the organizations involved with that incident, because it played its course, and it was handled based on the protocol set at the time. So out of respect for everyone involved in that, I won't comment specifically about that one, but I'll talk about policies and the protocols in place to address security, separation between ref officials and players and owners, etc. So MLS has a policy set up for from the moment we leave the hotel, arrive at the stadium, pre-field walkthrough, post-field walkthrough, before the kickoff, at halftime, end of match, departure from stadium. It's all laid out. Who's supposed to be where, who's not supposed to be where, the timeline of everything, the badge colors, all of that is laid out. But I mean, you guys are lovers of the game. It's all about application and then enforcement. So like a foul or a red card during the game, they try to set everything up. They try to prevent, but at the end of the day, if a player, an owner, a fan decides to do something outside of all of that, they'll do it, right? They're going to do it. Luckily in MLS, it doesn't happen a lot, but they're going to do it. And for me, the biggest thing is what happens after that. Are they dealt with in the way that we expect from a professional respect standpoint? And in general, between pro and MLS, they're usually on the same page. It's like, this happened, we expect this, and that's what ends up happening, right? So to make a long story short, we want to see more respect. We absolutely are behind. Not MLS. All of football in the world is behind when it comes to respect. Look at what happened in Turkey. Look at what happened in Brazil. And those are known because they're big countries and big leagues and top. I can't tell you how much happens in the lower divisions, the amateur divisions, but I do get the emails that say so-and-so referee was assaulted in amateur youth or youth game so-and-so in so-and-so little town. I'm going to pick a random state, Arkansas, where someone was taken to the hospital, etc. We see those because we're on the circles where we get those emails. So what I want to get out of this question, and I'm glad you asked this, is football community is behind on respect for the game, for the officials, for everyone involved, and we need to do better. We definitely need to do better. And what you guys will see in MLS this season is what I would call a clearer and stronger stance on dissent and professional dissent in the game. Whether it's a player, a fan, a coach, a referee, sometimes we're human, our emotion might get us in a place where we didn't show respect. There's going to be a push for and an application for, let's just call them some stronger lines to deal with those things. But we're behind.
So one last question to wrap it up, and we really appreciate your time. The World Cup incident with Abubakar, that red card. So you obviously had like a famous exchange with him with shaking the hand and then giving him the red card. You doing your job, that gesture. What other exchange, because we're called the exchange, what other exchange of words or exchange of like jerseys that have you ever asked a player for a jersey or something like that?
No, never.
Okay.
We don't want to do that. In some events, teams have I would say a gift protocol where before the game, they tell you that they are going to give a gift protocol, and it goes through the liaison and everything, and they just bring to the locker room a jersey or a watch or whatever it is, a pin, something. So that's where that ends. But look, the Abubakar incident, when I watch it again, and I'm like, this is exactly what I would have done if I was doing a Sunday league or if I was doing an MLS game, where a player scores a goal that will change his life, right?
Yeah.
You cannot, if you love the game, you cannot just treat it like any other goal. All right. So it was not thinking at all. Like, man, this guy just scored a goal at the World Cup for his nation against Brazil in the 90th minute. It's awesome. So whether he was going to get the card or not, I was going to be smiling. But because he was going to come near me to get the card, I just told him congratulations. I just told him congratulations for your game. He said thank you, and he walked away, and that's what we want to see more of.
There is one last thing, if we have a second. There's been a lot of talk about racism in the game, amongst players, fans to players. Is there a lot of that happens in the MLS from the fan standpoint to the players? I mean, I'm yet to see it, but I see it a lot in other leagues, and that's something that, I mean, I like I said, I don't see much in the MLS. Is that something that you guys hear or see a lot of in the MLS?
Not from the fans, but this is public knowledge, right? There are player-to-player incidents, and there are one is too many, by the way. One per season is already too many, but we had a couple of seasons where it was more than one. Definitely nothing that I would call it something alarming or a trend, but you don't want to have even one. And in MLS, we've had seasons where there was a couple, right? And it's the worst thing you can get involved with. It's the worst, right? It's the worst. There are obviously a lot of, like everything else I described earlier, MLS is doing a fantastic job establishing ways of educating proactively players coming from other countries and cultures about what it means to say this word, which in your country is totally okay, or at least it's accepted. I wouldn't say accepted, but it's accepted in the context of a game. But in MLS, for a player from another culture, it's devastating to them because it has cultural and historical meaning. So they're doing a great job educating people on these things, right? Players, new players to the league, and MLS gets a lot of new players every year, so that they are aware, right? And can stop some of that. But like I said, from the fans, we're lucky enough that we haven't, I'm not aware personally of one from the fans. We would like to have zero on the field as well between the players. And I'm hoping that these education and programs that MLS is doing for the new